So my friend, I hope at this point you are feeling pretty on top of ESXTOP, that you feel confident understanding what it is that you're going to use this command line tool on ESXi for, quickly gathering relevant statistics about what's going on in your virtual machines and on your hosts with regard to CPU, network, disk, and memory performance, as well as a little bit of power management information. So in this video, we're going to delve into using ESXTOP to help troubleshoot those disk and networking related issues that are evident because of poor performance on the part of the guest. Here in the VMware Hands-On Labs HUL 1951, we're going to secure shell using PuTTY to ESX-04A, and we've already typed ESXTOP at the command line. And by default, we're looking at the CPU utilizations, but if we want to jump to looking at disk properties, we certainly can. D to look at disks themselves. There's our list of disks on the left-hand side. And at a high level, we can see things like, okay, how many operations or commands, both I/O operations and SCSI commands, are being processed by the system. Then we actually have the quantity of reads and writes to view. We can look at that in terms of the megabytes. And then at the end, we have this nice set of three different averages that are actually very relevant and relate to each other. We have the device average, that's our first one. So what is the time being spent communicating with the device? Then what is the kernel average? How much time are we spending in the VM kernel processing these disk requests? And then when you add the two together, you get your overall or G average per command. Remember, we have those commands on the far left-hand side, so as we break down the time it takes to execute each of those commands, we see these values. This grand total here on the end, you definitely want to try and make sure that we are keeping that below 10 milliseconds on average. If it gets beyond that, we're going to have some real issues. Now, what we just did is the letter D, and the letter D is for device. All right, and so we see these adapters over here on the left-hand side. But we also could type in the letter U. And when we type in the letter U, now we're seeing individual disks. And since we currently have one disk per adapter, our statistics are going to look pretty similar over here on the right-hand side. But as we have aggregates going through a common adapter, this is going to be something we can use to break apart that information. Then finally, the letter V. So the V is going to be for virtual machine. And so we see the list of the VMs over here on the left-hand side. And so now we're looking at the statistics broken up by virtual machine. So we can see which of our VMs are involved in more heavy I/O operations. And that's going to help us be able to validate whether or not a particular VM is truly having a disk-related problem. Now we're going to press the letter N for network, which is an easy one to reference, which then breaks down the network operations. We can see the various different interfaces over here on the left and essentially kind of what they're connected to in terms of physical NICs that they are associated with, the switch that they are actually connected to. And most of the time I'm going to come here and I'm going to look at things like, okay, how much are we transmitting, packets of transmission and quantity, the megabytes of transmission, and similarly, how much are we receiving on any of these interfaces, and then what are we dropping? So for example, CP parent down here, that virtual machine connected to that NIC is having 100% drop of receive packets. Now there's a lot of reasons why that could be happening. It could be the queue is exhausted and there's just no ability to push packets through it anymore. It could be the guest is so busy with its CPU utilization that it's just ignoring the incoming packets. Or it could be a driver related issue. Or again, it could just be that the virtual switch does not have the capacity working its way out to its uplink to be able to support the overall traffic and packets are getting drops. And that sort of issue, of course, would tend to spread those drops across the virtual machine interfaces as opposed to a CPU or a driver related issue, which would tend to be focused on just a single VM. All right, my friend, by going through this nugget, you've been able to take a look at some of the key counters associated with troubleshooting your disk infrastructure at the adapter, device, and virtual machine level, and we had a chance to take a look at some of the network values because sometimes that's where our troubleshooting eye is going to fall. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.